I'm going to call the meeting to order and ask for a roll call, please.
Senator Carroll, Senator Neal, Senator Nunn,
Here.
Senator Reed,
Here.
Senator Thomas, Senator Wheeler,
Here.
Representative Blanton,
Here.
Representative Burke,
Here.
Representative Camuel,
Here.
Representative Lockett,
Here.
Representative Smith, Representative Riley, Representative Williams, Senator Howell, Co-Chair Elkins,
Present.
Co-Chair Sharp.
Present.
Before I ask about guests, I would like to welcome Representative Camuel to this committee. It's good to have you on this committee. I look forward to the valuable insight that you may bring. So, welcome. Anyone have any guests they would like to recognize this morning? Seeing none, I'm going to pass the torch to Representative Sharp. He has some work that he wants to take care of. So, Representative Sharp.
Thank you, Senator. The Oversight investigation staff they work very hard. They do a lot of work, and recently through the National Conference of State Legislators, they were recognized for one of their research papers as a notable document award they had received for this research paper they did on artificial intelligence. And I just want to acknowledge not only Mr. Spears here, but his entire staff on all the work they do to help out this committee. And it's a ton of work, I will say that. I was really shocked at how much work they do when I became the co-chair of this committee. Thank you.
I would like to add to that, they really do bring a lot to the conversation. The work they do is exceptional. Doesn't matter what question I ask, it seems like there's already an answer waiting for me, and I certainly appreciate that and the knowledge that they have on many of the topics that we discuss and many more that we never discuss. So thank you for that, and I appreciate your work that all of you do. With that, I'll ask for a motion to accept the minutes of the July meeting.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. So, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Like sign. With that, the minutes are approved. So first up, we have the statewide emergency responder voice system testimony. Like to welcome Mr. John Hicks to the table, and anyone that he may have brought with him. John, if you don't mind, please have a seat and raise your right hand if you would, please. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you, John. And with that, please introduce yourself and for the record, and you may begin.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name's John Hicks. I'm Secretary of the Governor's Executive Cabinet and also the State Budget Director. So I know I'm here to talk about, we call it the State Police Radio System Replacement Project, but we've got a new acronym on it. One of the things that, the role that, that I've played, particularly as State Budget Director, in kind of monitoring this project, this is one of the most complex capital projects that I've seen in my 40-plus year tenure in state government. It's the combination of 3 IT system replacements, land acquisition, and for the construction of telecommunication towers, all wrapped together in one. We did this over about 50 years ago, right? The existing system came about in response to the tornadoes in the early 70s, and so we haven't revisited this kind of scope of the project in that period of time. So just point that out. One of the things that the administration has taken, we've got so many, as you all know, Representative Petrus here. The capital budget in the last 2 budgets have been substantial. A lot of great projects in there, and so it's kind of like picking your favorite child, which is your priority. And this one is a priority. And I use the example of like the $150 million in parks projects, that were appropriated by the General Assembly. We've taken a whole government view, approach to that effort, and we're doing the same thing here. And it's come in phases. You all know, and you've heard testimony from the state police about the phasing in of this statewide project. And I would say is once we got past to as the state police moved into the second phase of this project, where there were more the need for more new sites, new towers associated with this new technology. The challenge of identifying sites for the additional towers and the associated task of finding the landowners, gauging their interest, negotiating a purchase or a lease, arranging access for the ingress or egress to those sites, locating deeds, preparing surveys and title work and appraisals and closings. You can see I'm starting to describe the kinds of roles that are not endemic to a law enforcement agency. That's not what they do for a living. And so with that, we conferred. We worked with the Justice Cabinet, the State Police, and brought in the Finance and Administration Cabinet to bring to bear some of their capabilities, particularly in the location of sites and the associated land services that I've just described. And after we worked together, we decided that we needed some outside help. And so we pulled together with the Finance Administration Cabinet, working with the State Police, an RFP for, I call it land services. I think it's more properly called real property consulting services, because we wanted to reach out to those people who know how to do these things and can do them in some volume. And so we put out an RFP, we qualified some vendors. We now have 3 vendors that are available to be tasked and to bid, because there is a competition among them, on the sites that the State Police identifies as being the next group of pieces of land and locations that are necessary to phase in, the radio system process. So that's, that was I'll say not an exceptional, but it was an add-on to what we were doing previously. And we want to bring in, and we want the state police to play the role they need to play. They're technology, they're the project manager. They know this technology. They know what they're trying to seek and do. They know the specificity of the locations that are necessary, the vicinity of those towers to one another, the elevation, and among other things in this project has been, a wholesale change out of technology. While we're moving through, I'll say, the identification of sites and the acquisition or leasing of those sites, and then future tower constructions, we've been busy doing other things. We've spent $110 million already on this project. Almost 1,900 mobile portable radios are acquired. We've done a microwave replacement in 56 sites completed and 76 more in process. We've addressed routers and switches and network upgrades, and so those are the kind of the information technology, telecommunications technology pieces that are behind this project, outside of the more physical element of finding land and building towers in addition to that. So just want the committee to know that we want it to move faster too. There's no question about that. We want to succeed in this project, because not only is it going to benefit the state police, because the real original purpose of this project was we had gaps in coverage in the radio system, and we don't need those gaps when we're doing first response from the state police. And then the secondary benefit, is the ability for local governments to be able to join in and use this technology once it's available to that. So that was not the first reason. The first reason was the state police's capabilities. But we're going to have a secondary benefit from these once it's in place. And that's going to be great, because this is the modern technology, and will create that capability, that public safety that we all want for our state police and other law enforcement and first responders. And so on an ongoing basis, the Justice Cabinet Secretary's Office, the Kentucky State Police staff, and the elements of the Finance Administration Cabinet, the Real Property Office, and the Engineering and Contracting Office, they meet on a weekly basis. And keeping up with what's going on and what needs to happen next and what needs to be done. So Secretary Johnson over in the Finance Administration Cabinet is plugged in. She considers this another item that that her folks will attend to with a great deal of effort. And and we're always looking for continuous improvement in this process. How can we do it, I want to say faster, because we know what it is needs to be done. It's not about doing it better, it's about doing it quicker. And so so in this process I mentioned with the land services and the vendors, we've kind of we had a learning curve, right? How we're going to do the business process, working with that, and we've kind of reached, a point at which we are now satisfied with the way that works, and we're going to start throwing more sites onto that process now that we kind of know how it will work. And so that's my expectation, is that in the nearer term we're going to see more speed with the location of and the negotiation of sites, so we can do tower construction, while in the background, the state police staff, will continue to work on the technology side. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hicks. Does anyone on this committee have questions? Representative Petrie.
If I may,
Yes, you may.
Secretary Hicks, thank you for the presentation, the overview, and yes, difficult project. Only done so many times, and I really don't take any issue with most everything that you said. I will start with this project started back in before 18 in its needs and its plans. Those needs, and I echo what you've talked about, the guiding motivation to this is we have gaps in coverage that affects KSP directly, and secondarily affects every local that can hopefully have a system that interoperates with that new system coming. And secondarily, we have a physical concern on the locals also, as they continue to buy radios that are not operable with this system as it comes online, as they replace their aging. The longer this project holds out, the more local money we've got misused or not optimally used, and there are continual requests coming into the General Assembly to help fund those things as they move along from year to year. So we start in 18 with funding that starts 35.1 million or so. In 2020, about 52 million. In 22, 80.8 million. And in 24, about 47.9 million, which puts us up to about 218.8 million that has been authorized, which also implicit in that is every time there has been a request, it has been funded. Mm-hmm. From wherever it is that the agency requests, and up to this point, no modifications requested ad hoc by anyone to make the system better. So if I understood your testimony today, of that 218.8 million that has been authorized so far, about 110 million has been actually obligated, because I think all this is bond, and spent. Is that right?
That's right.
You got a project starts in 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. There are learning curves. And I understand that this may be put back into priority because there's a lot of things going on, but this is a true priority that has gone on for a long time. 110 million out of 218 available that many years gone by, and if I understand correctly, maybe in May of this year, there was a probable $107 million request that went through capital planning, or at least talked about in capital planning. I don't know if that number will stick firm, decrease, go up, and I don't know what future year request will be, but this is turning into an unbelievably expensive and long-term project. Now, all of that said, and it's an unbelievably long and complex project for some really good reasons we're trying to push it, and really good reasons I know you and the administration wants to get it done. Really good reasons, really public safety reasons. Really comes, the question is this, with that context, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, not pointing fingers, I'm looking at the issue itself. I know you may have, Secretary Johnson may have redoubled efforts somewhat recently to, okay, how better can we process this? And KSP is collaborative with that, and you are. Is there something else we need to be doing? Is there, whether it be General Assembly assistance or whether it be talking to additional people? If I'm looking at this right, this may be 2030 or 2032 before this is actually finished. We can be hopeful and say 2029 or 30. Realistically, probably 2031, 2032 if I had to take a real world guess. It would be from 2018 to right at 2030. So is there something else that we can do differently, some way that we can assist? Anything you've got, I'm just asking.
No, I appreciate the offer very much. No, I think you're correct in the sense that as governors have proposed and General Assemblies have enacted, right, they've put in the money that is needed. And one of the things that state police learned from those earlier days to more recent days is what the costs really were about that, and that's why some of you just recited properly the number of biennial budget appropriations for that, and there is a final or closeout phase that is being proposed that was in the capital plan. That's accurate. So, no, I think the General Assembly is doing what it's been asked to do here, which is to finance it, and I think what we've got to do as the executive branch is improve upon our performance in terms of getting this done, and I think we've finally got into a spot where at least the portion of the project that is the most delayed, and I want to say that because there are some portions of the project that have gone well, is the location of the land acquisition and tower construction. And one of the other things that the state police has done here is phased it in a west to east sense, so that at least you don't have to be finished at the end to have some of the benefits early on. We've already got a Western Kentucky phase that's already up and operational, so that turned out to be at least a smart decision to not try to do it big bang, but try to do it in pieces. So I, in my view, we've got the capabilities. There's not anything I'll say particularly in the procurement laws, that we can't overcome, because we can build towers. That is in our capabilities over in the Finance Administration Cabinet. It's just like we build buildings, right? We work with the private sector to get that done. It's this piece of acquiring and locating land and all the associated real property issues that is the bigger challenge. But as I said, we've got better capabilities now, and hopefully, I want to beat your timelines, that you proposed, but understand, the expectations.
Yeah, I hope you beat I hope those timelines are like, wow, that was way too long.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fully in support of that. But speaking of west to east, then I look at my phases on west to east, and the west was the easiest of these with post 1 and 2, by far the easiest. And a learning curve involved, but it's taken maybe a year and a half or better longer than what expected just to get through those. And they have very, very, I think it's maybe only 3 new towers in that district. And so you're talking about, as we move to the central pieces and move to the eastern pieces, you exponentially grow in how many new towers have to be established, which to me means longer timelines, way longer than what it took in the west to establish and retool existing towers, and much less in volume. Fair enough?
Oh, no question. Flat land was easier to deal with than more mountainous regions.
Yeah, and the reason I ask if there's something we can do relative to the parks projects, you mentioned that of $150 million of bonding going out to deal with parks across the Commonwealth. There were conversations I had, and I was happy to have them with Secretary Johnson and maybe even yourself. I can't recall, but I remember distinct conversations with her about, well, if we could change these little things in procurement, and these are the reasons why, then we think this would really assist in that. And guess what? General Assembly did it. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going on this one, oh my gosh, the timeline. And if this were relative to parks, I would just be sending some questions to you and going, what's going on? Can we help? Yeah. This is regarding public safety. This is regarding local public safety, KSP public safety, Commonwealth-wide public safety, and we're looking at 2018 to very likely 2030 to get this done. And we have a further problem of by the time we get it done, then we'll be in phase 2 to replace everything that was done 10, 15 years prior to its completion, is what I'm concerned about. And then if I may, one more piece, Mr. Chair.
Yes, you may.
Heretofore, everything's been funded. and everything's been taken on. This is what we think it should be done, and this is what we're asking, and it's been funded. I see agency in the room. I'm assuming finance will be aware of this, and you're aware of it sitting there. Those funding requests will be looked at analytically and critically, not this is what we think we need, and just continue doing what you're doing. We're going to have to understand how this is actually going to work, because I don't want my successor to be here in 2028, 2030, 2032 dealing with the same project. So I look forward to those detailed conversations about how is this actually working and going to work better to beat those timelines that I've laid out, because I want you to come back, and this is 2025. I want you to come back in 2 or 3 years, call me up and go, we beat that timeline. That's done. I'll be happy for that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Blanton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Hicks, thank you for being here and presenting today. A lot of concern in the amount of time this has taken. I understand we're entering into some new territory, as you said, with the acquiring of the properties and so forth that maybe not accustomed to, but I don't think the state's unaccustomed to it either, in that we have towers all over the state. We've acquired properties in the past, so that isn't necessarily new, but not only the length of time, but we're talking about a much needed radio system that we're 7 years into the project, basically since the initial funding, and these radios are going to be outdated by the time that the towers are up and ready for them to be put to use. That's concerning, and I know what it's like to be out there and deal with an outdated radio system when you really need it. A couple quick questions. When was the site selection vendor RFP? When was that completed?
I'm not sure, Representative Blanton. I'll have to get that back to you.
But within the past month, within the past 6 months?
Oh yeah, it was at least past 6 months. Yes.
Okay. Have any sites been acquired since this approval of this RFP and these consulting groups? Has these vendors acquired any property since they've been taken on?
I know that there are a number of properties that are in process. I'll yield to the state police and the finance folks to know for sure whether any have been completed.
And like Representative Petrie or Chairman Petrie said, I don't think anybody's not wanting to get this project completed, but what I don't want to see is not only the outdated radio systems, but I'm going to talk about a dirty subject here, but I don't want another Kentucky Wired on our hands with this radio system. You know, we're years and years and millions and millions and millions of taxpayer dollars, and we've got all these first responder agencies that's dependent on this system, and we can't get it in place for them. All I'm asking is find somebody that knows how to get this thing done and get it done, please. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Blanton. Representative Sharp.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Mr. Hicks. How are you?
Good morning. I'm well, thank you.
I really appreciate your detailed opening statement, and I got a couple of questions here. When you're doing a capital project, is there a detailed plan on how that's done?
Yeah, yes. I mean, typically there is. In a typical capital project, right? You have the programming phase, which is, I'll use a construction of a building, for example. You know, what are you going to do with the space? You know, what is the need there? Then you get into the preliminary design phase, and those things then kind of govern the plan moving forward, right? Then you go into the specifications for the RFP for the construction, and then there is a construction schedule that is associated with the contract there. So, the plan is iterative because it comes out of the planning and the design process. And so with a project like this, right, where you've got this combination of technology and equipment and installation, and then acquisition and construction, and so you've got these dual paths that are going on within this project. And so So on the technology side, they've made great advances there. And we're talking a complete replacement, as Representative Blanton says. It is a change out of the old system to a new technology. So that is already designed and planned and is known, right? Some of the hardware and electronics associated with those things are also in place. We know the specifications, the routers, the switchers, the network upgrade. So those things we've got, and then in addition, simultaneous with this project, we're also working on the reestablishment of the leases. So many of those leases I mentioned going back to the 70s are up. And so we're also in the process of renewing those leases for the existing towers where we're leasing them and not owning them.
Okay, that sounds like a very detailed plan. Is there one on this project? Because I've asked for the last year for the plan on this, and I was told there's not one.
Well, in that case, the plan for the property acquisition is I'll say bit by bit, right? There is a plan in that. You all have shown the maps, that State Police has provided. We know the relative locations, the latitude and longitude of the sites and their relationship to each other, which is really critical in this new technology.
Is there a timeline in this plan? I mean, when you're doing a normal construction with a capital project, I imagine you have a timeline.
Well, the timeline here is a little more difficult when you're finding locations and land acquisition. That's what's. I mean, you hope to meet a plan, but but it becomes a function of where can you find it? Can you find the owner? Are they willing to sell or lease? Do we have access to both, roadway in and out? Do we have access to power? Those kind of things. So those are site by site requirements, and so we can estimate what it takes to do that, but each one of them is individual and unique.
Okay, now there have been many other states that have done this, and they have done it in 5 to 6 years. I'm trying to figure out why we're not capable of making that happen, and I don't know where the holdup is. I was wondering if you could comment on that.
I don't have the analogs with that. I trust your information is correct, but I'm not familiar with the specifics of other states' projects.
Has anyone looked at other states that have done this and see how they have done it?
I'm sure the state police has, because I know that they are familiar with the other jurisdictions who've done this like I said, on a statewide basis versus a local government jurisdiction.
Has there been any cost analysis on this taking so long, and under the inflation that we've had in the last 5 years, how much has this project increased in cost just based on it's taken so long?
I don't have the answer to that. I understand the question. The primary element of that would be the cost of equipment, because if we're leasing a land, that hasn't had much of an issue. But I'll yield again to the state police on knowing that. And one of the things they recognized as they were phasing in the multiple budget requests that Representative Petrie recounted is, as they're watching the marketplace and the cost of the technology associated with that. And so the one thing they do know is they do know what they need to purchase and acquire in order to and to have it installed. And one of the things they have to be careful with, kind of related to what Representative Blanton said, is you don't want to buy equipment and warehouse it and let the warranty start running, right? You want that warranty to be more associated with you going live on a moving forward basis, so that if something happens and it's still in a warranty period, it's not because it sat in a warehouse and you lost the time there.
Well, and I understand that. How long does it normally take to acquire real property?
It depends on the particular situation here. Most of the times when we're acquiring real property outside of the transportation cabinet's right-of-way property acquisition, we're building institutions, whether it's a university institution or an adult correctional institution or a juvenile justice facility. So we don't acquire property that often because we don't have projects like that often. And usually we're in developed areas already. Not always. I remember landing on a strip mine in Morgan County in the mid-'80s to find what became Eastern Kentucky Correctional Complex. So that was a little bit different, right? We were citing a prison. And in that case, as long as it was accessible, because it's not too far from West Liberty, it had access to services there. But that was that's different than here. We're finding, I don't want to say it specific, hilltops, right? We're finding elevated locations that are right for the location requirements of the state police, and so we're in very rural area. And as we move, particularly in the east, we're in rural areas, most of Kentucky. So that's just a little different, acquisition than we're used to.
I'm gonna
Go ahead.
I'm gonna move it along. We've got about 3 more signed up.
Yes, sir.
So if you have one final question, Representative Sharp.
Okay, I was talking to a National Guard member, and they've got towers up all over the state. I was wondering if you were pairing up with the National Guard to use their towers.
I know that working with the state police and working with the finance cabinet has identified all state agency assets, and including land, like our Department of Parks. So I don't know specifically of that, but I do know that we've kind of put out an APB on what assets do the Commonwealth have that can be leveraged for this project.
Thank you, Mr. Hicks. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. Senator Howell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of quick questions, please. Thank you, Mr. Secretary Hicks, for being here. Kind of following up on that question, in my prior iterations of my practice, I've worked with the Division of Real Properties on some acquisition work, and I've always thought that they've done an incredibly good job of identifying property, going through the process, and this sort of thing. What you mentioned that by purchasing this property is more difficult. What exactly makes it more difficult that it takes all of this additional time? I understand that you have to have the area gridded out and buy in certain places, but I've worked with cell tower companies and they manage to do this in 2 or 3 months often. And I just wonder what's different about a police or state police tower coverage area that's different from being able to identify it on a cell phone coverage area and do it in 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, I don't have the response for you about that regarding. You're right. The real property folks would be the ones to know the answer to that question of what's the different qualities of that kind of acquisition.
Apparently, it hadn't gotten to real property yet. It's been 7 years since we started till we started the RFP to actually buy property. Is that what I heard you say? That we just now let an RFP
It was in recent years, but the need for acquisition, particularly as Representative Petrie said, was less so as we started the project, and as we funded it through multiple budgets. Right, the financing was available later for that. But yes, we once we realized that that the amount of challenge that would be on the state police to identify the property, which isn't the best place for that to happen, that's when we asked to step in and provided some more resources.
One last question, Mr. Chairman. Representative Blanton mentioned Kentucky Wired. My thought was along those lines, but I was thinking more along the lines of CAVIS with the Transportation Department, and that seems to be what this is turning into. Was there ever any discussion about hiring private contractors? I know Tennessee went that route and did this in a relatively short period of time, and they have a lot of the same topographical issues and rural urban issues that we do. Has there been any discussion about maybe hiring somebody that is more familiar with this process to come in and finish this thing out timely?
Well, there has, we have in terms of the property acquisition, we don't believe we have any problems, with timing of constructing a tower, right? Because as Representative Blanton said, we've done that, right? So that's not where the holdup is. And so the gap was in the finding of the locations and the owners and the leasing on the real property, and that's what we're attending to now. We're using the private sector to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be real brief. A lot of questions I have were answered, but Mr. Hicks, I believe what I'm listening to, if we could get it between now and our budget session, which I'd say there'll be a request come in, could we see a master plan? I mean, typically every project starts with a master plan. I know you have design, you have a lot of information already put together, but as Representative Sharp pointed out, just a an overview of where we're at, what you're anticipating by the funding requests that you're giving us, and basically from the past to the present. If you could just give us a master plan on where we're at and what you're, I know this isn't in your wheelhouse on construction. I know that your job is to watch over the funds, but on the budgeting, but there's a lot of moving parts underneath you that until it's finished. And we're just trying to understand what those moving parts are and what the delay's been. And typically, it doesn't surprise me that when government's hands in it, that it takes a lot longer. On this side, we're requiring certain things from you on meeting certain requirements, regulations. There's all the red tape that's involved in it. But the only thing that I've heard so far that would help, and mostly with Chairman Petrie, is that to know how we got here and what is the finish line. Is the 4 or 5 years and again, or is it on a faster pace now that you got your hands around it? But before the request comes in, if we could see a master plan that shows us where we've been, where we're at, and where the end goal is, I believe it'd help.
Certainly, Representative Smith would be glad to do that.
Senator Wheeler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Obviously, we've been talking a lot about physical infrastructure and acquiring property and building towers. I've got a friend of mine that works for the power company, AEP, and I think he's got Starlink installed on his truck. And, he works in very remote areas, Kentucky and West Virginia, and I guess, that the purpose of that is so they can get cell phone service, basically, I guess, via Wi-Fi or whatever in very remote areas, and apparently, functions very, very well. Have we looked at, clearly technology is constantly evolving, and, I'm not sure that even existed back when we first started this project in 2018. Have we looked at it sort of outside the box, outside of acquiring physical towers and these property sites, as to whether, I guess, it would go along with what Senator Howe was saying, working with private sector, working with companies that may offer alternative services to actually just putting up physical towers?
I understand the question, Senator Wheeler. I'm not sure. That's that part of the technology side. I would ask the state police to look at it. I don't think I've heard of an analogy so far of another statewide jurisdiction who's used that. But I understand your question, so we'll ask the state police to understand.
I'm not a technology guru either. Okay, yeah. I'm just saying that repeating somebody that has something similar in rural areas that apparently works.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you,
Senator Nunn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Secretary, for being here today. I'm going to ask you a question that I don't expect you to have the data to, so feel free to speak in generalities or estimations. What percentage of people that are working on this project would you say are working from home at this time?
I wouldn't know that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. What our enterprise-wide policy on that is 3 days in the office, and at a minimum, and there's about half of state government employees are in 5 days.
Mr. Hicks, I have a couple of questions as well, if you would indulge me. In 2018, I think this thing began at about $35.1 million, and then in 2020, another $52.4 million. 2021, $52.8 million. 2022, $28 million. 2024, $47.9 million. Brings us to the $216 million, I think, that Representative Petrie mentioned earlier. And then looks like another possible $107 million. What was the initial cost of this plan? And then what was the initial timeline when we began in 2017 talking about it?
Senator Elkins, I'd have to go back and find that for you.
I would like to know that, please. And I want to stress this. We've heard it here often. We're incredibly sensitive to the safety issue here, but we also have a fiduciary responsibility that we owe that to the taxpayers. So I would like to see, and I would recommend, and Representative Petrie and I have talked about this, I would like to see a timeline, something that says we're going to be done by this time. And I'd like to get updates often and regular, because I'm not sure the 2030 date is attainable. It may be 2032 even. If I understand correctly, we're 80 towers sites, greenfield sites that we need, and we purchased 2, maybe from private entities, leaving at least 75 or more to go. I don't know how we get there that quick. In 2024, the budget bill, the General Assembly gave the KSP the authorization to directly acquire land for these tower sites. But the KSP representative said they couldn't use that authorization. Do you know why they couldn't use that authority, and have we cleared the path to where they can now?
It's not that they couldn't, it's that they shouldn't, because that is not their skill set. It doesn't change the laws that we have to follow in the regulations that Representative Smith did on acquiring property. That language didn't suspend procurement law and say, or endorse eminent domain. So that is not what the state police does, and it's not what they're good at.
Maybe we look at someone who is good at it and who does that. Maybe that's the answer, because it is imperative that we move this along much quicker than it has. That we remove any roadblocks that are in the way to get this project complete. It's important to this committee because we've talked about it time and time again. Representative Petrie, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Very briefly, look, master plan, and I think you have that in some senses, and it may not be tooled to what we're asking for, but it can be retooled for it. And if it's appropriate, and if I understand the chair correctly, if this committee could receive and share out, could receive a monthly progress report, and whether that report comes from KSP, Finance, you, all three, someone else we haven't talked about today that knows and can report credibly and accurately about what's happening. And in particular, I think the chair has just mentioned the number of sites to be acquired. So all the important pieces of how we're making progress, not fluff, but the important pieces of actual progress, including but not limited to site selection, site acquisition, whether by lease or by purchase, tower construction, started, completed, activation, or at least ready for activation and use at the tower. And each of those monthly reports, I think, would be useful if there is any amendment to the timelines, as in we expect 2.2 days less than what we thought now, or 2 months less than what we thought now, or 2 years longer than what we had hoped. If that could be updated along with that monthly report, I think it would be assistive to the committee. And if the committee wouldn't mind sharing that out with others upon request, I would ask that you consider that.
Absolutely, and thank you, Representative Petrie. One final, I want to recognize one final senator for a question, Senator Carroll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Hicks, if I remember correctly, last time we had a presentation on this topic, we talked about KSP working with local governments to acquire sites that are needed for towers and to be assisted, because obviously they have stake in this also. Are you aware of any improvements or any movement in that area to partner with local governments to expedite this process?
Yeah, thanks, Senator Carroll. I know one of the things that when I had a discussion with our real property folks is that the vendors that I'm talking about that are going out there and seeking the sites, asking our real property folks, are they covering the waterfront in the local areas? Are they talking to the county judge executives? Are they talking to the local officials there who know the lay of the land, where they may have some helpful input there? So I have at least asked a similar question to make sure that they're not leaving that stone unturned.
Secretary Hicks, I want to thank you for being here today. It's a difficult topic, I know, and I know that it's as important to you as it is to the rest of us. If you would indulge me, Representative Sharp has one final thing he would like.
I just want to make sure we clarify what Representative Petrie and we were talking about the follow-up reports, the periodic reports every month on. I want to make sure we got an acceptance from you that this committee will be getting those.
Yes, we'll do that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Secretary Hicks, thank you for being here today. As I was saying, I know that it's imperative and important to you as well, as it is to Mr. Marshall, and I know if we work together, I think we'll get this thing done a little quicker, and I look forward to hearing from you much more often. Thank you, Secretary Hicks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
With that, we will move to conversation on investment of state funds. Ms. Bechtel, if you would make your way to the podium. If you would each raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. You may now introduce yourself and begin when you're ready. You'll have to make sure that microphone's on and maybe pull it a little closer to you, so it's going to be...
There it goes. Okay.
I apologize for not clarifying that beforehand. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Kim Bechtel. I'm the Deputy Executive Director in the Office of Financial Management. I'm over the Investments Group.
Joe McDaniel, State Controller for the Finance and Administration Cabinet.
So I'm going to start with the Estate Investment Commission. This commission is made up of the State Treasurer, who is the chair, the Secretary of Finance and Administration Cabinet, the State Controller, and 2 banking association members appointed by the governor. We have meetings on a quarterly basis to kind of go over the investments or any kind of makeup of reporting that we have, and just any questions or anything that they've things that need to be voted on during the meeting. Next slide. The Investment Commission, we have investment in objectives. The first objective is, of course, preservation of principal. The second one is to maintain liquidity to meet cash needs of 3,500 plus accounts across the Commonwealth. And then our third goal is to maximize return. With our investment pools, we have 3 unique pools that operate much like mutual funds. Of course, the short-term pool, which is general fund and related accounts only, they have immediate cash needs, but also can take some market risk. The intermediate pool, it's accounts that with more of an overnight time horizon, which expect higher income over a longer period of time. And the limited term pool, those accounts have immediate cash needs and cannot take market risk. So basically it's like interest on a checking account is more from what the limited term pool is. These are the investments and limits. Everything is fixed income or part of the bond market. So we have, of course, U.S. Treasuries and agencies. They are high quality assets. They're liquid. So if there is a need for immediate cash, we have the ability to receive it. Of course, can purchase corporate debt, and commercial paper, certificate of deposits. Then there's treasury bills and discount notes. We use our repurchase agreements, which is basically investing cash overnight. That is collateralized with a security with the broker. Then mortgage-backed securities and asset-backed municipals, and then we also utilize money market funds with the same structure of the type of investments that we can invest in directly, and we use those as liquidity as well. So you can see as far as we have to follow ratings, which are the highest in those categories, as well as we have limits on our term or the weighted average life on those. And then I've also detailed which pools can invest in each type of security. So short and intermediate are very similar, except their time horizons. Of course, the intermediate can go out longer than the short, but the limited is very more constrained in the type of security, because we're trying to make sure that it meets those requirements of making sure the dollar in is the dollar that you receive. And then our website resources, of course, it details the investment management, the authorization for the State Investment Commission, and details our what securities, the types of securities. We also report monthly, where you can see earnings and the makeup of each portfolio. Of course, we also have policy, which is the investment manual. It details terminology as far as the securities, has an information statement for each portfolio, and details what it can invest in. We have trading limits, and also kind of gets into more detail as far as the types of securities. And then with the State Investment Commission, there's authorization for it, membership. We report our approved list, which we approve brokers on an annual basis that we can purchase securities from. And then we also, on a quarterly basis, at each State Investment Commission, we have a corporate credit list that we have for approval, and then, of course, the meetings. And if you have any questions about anything, of course, I've included on the bottom of that our website.
Thank you for that. Have a couple of members with questions, if you would. Representative Lockett?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a couple questions, if that's okay.
It is, yes.
I guess I'm gonna start with, can you tell me who actually makes the investment? Is that a broker? Is it someone at the finance cabinet? Who is actually pulling the trigger and saying, we are going to make this investment?
That is our the investment group. So it's myself and my staff.
Okay.
So
So when you're looking at the permitted investments and limits, the slide that you showed before, are these the only things that you are choosing from when you are investing?
yes.
So it appears to me that these are all very, I would consider, safe investments. But also, with being safe, they're also not going to yield what could be received through other investments as well. And I understand that you may be limited in terms of statute. I get that as well. Would you have an idea of what average return that you're currently receiving?
As far as average, we report with our on our monthly, we report like the monthly return versus a benchmark. So we use benchmarks to kind of determine our returns on that. It usually it depends on the month, because where there can be market changes each month, especially in the intermediate and the short term, it's easier to report on the monthly, because each month can change just depending on what happens in the market.
Sure. So do you have an average? Do you have a number that you'd say over the last 6 months we've earned this much?
I can calculate that and get back to you on that one.
Is that available on the website?
Yes, it is.
Okay. If you could still calculate that and let this committee know, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Representative Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for being here. I think a lot of this was brought up over a question that I asked over the firefighters fund. I'm looking at, you have 3,500 accounts that you oversee.
Yes.
So I'm going to say that's congratulations on your efforts to do that, and thank you for oversight. The question I have is that came to my attention was that they carried a $50 million balance, and it was consistent over years. Out of the 3,500 accounts, I'm sure there's probably others that do the same thing. Is that something that the committee looks at on an account that maintains? Because I would say that you want the same thing we want. You want to be able to make money on money, and which helps us. If we had 50 million, if we had 10 of them, that's 500 million, and if we had 20 of them, we're at $1 billion, which at 4% is a lot of money. So I was thinking, why would we have $50 million on a 1% account? And I'm trying to find this, and also some research that I've looked back on the funds that you have. What's shown online is they're all making around 4%, but we have testimony that we had an account that was sitting there with kept maintaining a $50 million balance that was getting 1%. We asked them why they didn't have it at a 4 or 5% rate. They said it wasn't their decision. So I'm thinking now we have the decision maker, which is your board. And I'm going to be very careful on this because I'm not educated enough to get deep dive in it. But it was concerning to me that we were making 1% on a consistent fund. And if we have one that just comes out over testimony, is there several that we can say has an average that we could use for the last 3 years, last 5 years, last 10 years, that are generated monthly through revenues, through taxes? They have a burn rate that that's been consistent, but it's been maintained at a certain amount. Would that not be considered an account that you would feel safe in taking a percentage? And maybe it's our regulations. Maybe we have regulations that keeps you from doing funds that way. If we do, is that the case? And I know I've asked you a lot of different things, but could you kind of summarize for me where we're at and how this is happening? And is it because of regulations? Is it because of laws that we've passed? Go ahead.
Thanks, Representative. So regarding the question for that commission, the Finance Cabinet does not prepare their financial statements. With that, we haven't evaluated their financial statements. So I will say that, right, first and foremost. And then regarding your other questions with the 1%, when the account was established for that commission, there's a process that determines, as Kim mentioned, our first priority is always to preserve assets, because we don't want to say to the constituents that we've lost cash, tax dollars, because of a poor investment, right? So again, all of our statutes and what the commission has to invest in and what they're allowed to invest in is limited because of that. Is the very first priority is to make sure we're not losing tax dollars that have been collected or fees. With that, when that fund was established, there's a process with every fund that goes through scrutiny as to what's the turnover for their dollar, right? They may have 50 million sitting there, but maybe they're turning, like you mentioned, they're turning that over quickly. So that determines the type of investments we're allowed to purchase because we need the liquidity, right? So that's number 2 of the objective is liquidity. And then the third objective is, of course, the return. We're happy to evaluate that with that commission to see if their fund needs to be moved to a different pool out of the 3 pools based on their spend down and how they're spending their
The
funds.
way excuse me, Mr. Chairman, can I have a follow-up?
Yes, you may.
We're both saying basically the same thing, but now you're saying you need to look into it and see how that fund, is that the responsibility of your board is that part of the 3,500 counts? Or is this commissions are totally separate from what you do? I mean, do you have oversight on the commissions?
So that's the determining of the pool is when the fund is created. We do have entities that come back after that, after a period of time, and they determine that based on analysis, they could be in a different pool that has a different maturity on their investments. Sometimes, as most of us know, that's not been the case the last few years. Shorter term maturities have yielded a higher return than a longer term maturity.
Okay, so I may have gotten to the crust of it. You don't have anything to do with commissioner's account. These commission accounts. You don't have any oversight of them. So
we work with their management to determine which pool is best for them at the establishment. If they would,
so you do deal with their funds,
upon establishment.
Their balance. That's all that I was bringing to
Yes,
attention was, is it not a legitimate question to say if you have $50 million that is consistent staying in an account that it should do better than 1% if your other accounts are doing 4%?
We don't look at it, so we don't analyze it at the individual account level because there's 3,500 plus accounts across 3 different pools that fluctuates.
So are we dropping the ball on that? Or should we be requiring these commissions to give us information so we can determine that? Who should be determining that if you're saying that you're not really looking at it? Who should be looking at those funds? Those are tax dollars that are every day. There's funds coming into it every day. It's coming off of somebody paying taxes. So where are we dropping the ball on oversight on it? Is it on?
Management of the commission would need to contact the finance cabinet if they're unhappy with their returns, and then we could reevaluate again if they're in the correct pools or not.
Well, I asked management, and they told us it wasn't their decision. I asked them, if I'm right, Mr. Chairman, I asked them that question. So again, it just come out over us having a hearing about the firefighters, and then we found out, we was reading that they had a pool of money, and that we was looking at what their expenditures, but we seen a consistent amount of $50 million over time. I was just bringing this out. If we have one that just so happens to be laid in our lap, how many more do we have? Out of 3,500 accounts, you're saying you're maintaining 3,500, but this isn't one of them. How many do we have out there? Is all commissions like that?
So we have conversations with boards and commissions frequently from their management about their returns, and occasionally that does yield a change to how they're invested. But the management comes to us and asks for that.
If you had this account, would you have it in 4% or 1%?
I don't know enough about their burn
Well, if you
rate.
had an account that was bringing in had $50 million in it, stayed consistent over a 5-year period, where would you have that money at today with your oversight? Would you have it in 1% or would you have it in 5%? I'm looking that you got yours in 4%.
Representative, I'm happy to have that conversation with commission because we would need to analyze their burn rate and their liquidity needs.
Well, are you able to give us information on how many commissions out there are in the same position they are in? Do you have that information for us?
I'm not, and again, I would say that's the management of those commissions to converse with our offices if they're concerned with their returns.
I'm gonna
thank you.
I'm gonna move this along. Thank you, Representative Smith. Senator Reed.
Thank you, Chairman.
Good morning. And I just had a quick question. In a month of returns, and what is your gauge on a good month versus a bad month? I'm just wondering what the high-low window, as far as like when you look at the monthly return, what makes you feel good inside, and when you see it on the low side, when is it bad?
We have, when it comes to all our portfolios, of course, we have 3 different ones, and we have 3 different managers. So we look at it on an individual pool level, and as far as long as we are somewhere around our benchmark, whether it be a little over or a little under, we feel good about that, or comfortable with that we're maintaining somewhere close to that benchmark. And those benchmarks are approved by our State Investment Commission on what we utilize.
Thank you.
I have one question, I think, and you may have hit on it and I just missed it, but I think we may have bounced around it a bit even, but who is it that reviews these investments to make sure they're maximizing their potential? Is there a board, a committee? Do you review them? Who does that work?
As far as the review, of course, we will report to the State Investment Commission on a quarterly basis and lay out or show what our returns are for the past 3 months, and the reporting that's in our policy as far as individual pools. So we report on all 3 of them, and also kind of give an update because since liquidity is a key factor for us, we will also talk about our cash flow and where we stand on that. And so they have the opportunity to kind of review and ask questions on that. Of course, with our monthly reporting, we post it out there on our website so that if anyone has any questions or they want to see what happened the past month, it's available for everyone to look at.
So one follow-up, no one actually recommends that hey, this isn't doing what it should be doing if the commission or the board or whoever doesn't pay attention or doesn't look at it, and it is moving at 2% or 1%. There's no one that says, hey, you may want to look at this. We may want to make changes. Do I understand that correctly?
We also, as portfolio managers, we look at the portfolio as a whole and how it's moving along with our benchmark. So that's, it's the manager that is looking to see how it falls along with the market.
Yeah. Thank you. I see no further questions, so hang on. Representative Lockett has one more question.
I'll be brief. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you tell me, in terms of the State Investment Commission, the members that are on there, can you tell me how many of those are appointed by the governor and or indirectly appointed by the governor?
On the slide.
Yes. So we have the Secretary of the Finance and Administration Cabinet and the State Controller. The 2 banking members, they are directly appointed by the governor. So
everybody on that list, with the exception of the state treasurer, is basically appointed by the governor. Is that correct?
The banking associations work together to provide recommendations to the governor, and then he makes his appointment from those. But to answer your statement.
Okay.
I'd like to go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think it could be prudent to really look at possibly in the future in terms of who is on the investment commission. I get very concerned when basically, and this is another great example where government gets in the way, and when we look at returns that are not stellar in a great market year, and our state is getting 4% maybe on average. I understand liquidity. I understand the need to have cash quickly. I understand the need for long-term investments as well. My concern with some of these, I don't know in terms of what we're looking at. I don't know qualifications of the people that are on the commission. So I think possibly in the future this is something that we need to look at. And I would also suggest, Mr. Chairman, that we have the entire commission come before this committee as well in some future date. Thank you.
Duly noted. Thank you. And thank you for being here today. I appreciate the presentation. It was very informative, and your indulgence to the questions very much needed. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chairman.
Final group for the day will be presenters from the Department of Juvenile Justice. Please have a seat and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. You may introduce yourself for the record and begin when you are ready.
I'm Mona Womack, and I'm the Deputy Secretary for the Justice and Public Safety Cabinet.
I'm Randy White. I'm the Commissioner for the Department of Juvenile Justice.
My name is Brian Locke. I'm an attorney. I work with the Justice and Public Safety Cabinet Office of Legal Services as an executive advisor.
You may proceed.
Yes, sir. I would like to thank the members of the committee for inviting us today. I appreciate your support and look forward to the upcoming collaboration in the next legislative session. I take this the invitation today as a sign of support and interest in the Department of Juvenile Justice. We have a lot of information to put out today, and we have a short PowerPoint. I've got notes to talk through. It might not necessarily match the PowerPoint, so shift your attention, please, between the PowerPoint and the notes. And I'd also like to thank Danny Carroll that's in the audience today. We had the opportunity recently to spend the better part of a day walking and talking about needs and issues within the Department of Juvenile Justice. So again, thank you for your support, and I look forward to the upcoming legislative session. So to get started with the PowerPoint, we'll work our way through the slides, and I'll just read through the notes, and please feel free to ask questions at any time, and we'll try to keep track with the program. Many of you on this committee were not members when the Legislative Oversight Investigative Committee investigated DJJ several years ago, resulting in a list of over 30 recommendations. Some of you may have also not been familiar with important details about how juvenile justice operates and how far we've come over the past 3 years. As such, we provided several introductory slides for the informational purposes. I will not spend much time on the slides as stated, but you'll have them for reference later. We've been asked to provide an update on the recommendations from this committee in 2023 following the investigation. In order to sufficiently address the dozens of recommendations in the allotted 15 minutes, we've grouped recommendations into categories for ease of presentation and understanding. As a reminder, DJJ and the Justice and Public Safety Cabinet provided written responses to each recommendation, which were included in the final LOIC report. And if you don't mind, I'll just abbreviate and call it LOIC, if that's okay. We also testified when the report was presented to the committee. It's important to note that juvenile justice began significant investments prior to, alongside, and after the recommendations and legislative mandates, some of which resulted in recommendations and legislation, and many of which were implemented independently. This work continues and is an ongoing process. We've included those updates within these categories as well. Since I began as DJJ Commissioner, I've been committed to continually improving and investing in DJJ to ensure that we're putting the safety and security of our youth and staff first, as well as investing in programming and mental health services. In short, this is not the same DJJ that LOIC investigated in 2023, and our work is ongoing. And I realize that I've testified in front of many of you before, but I'll just go into my background very quickly so that you know where I come from. This year marks the 30th year of state employment for myself. I went into retirement out of the Department of Corrections in 2023, in December 2023. And after almost 28 years of service there, I was warden at the Green River Correctional Complex, Kentucky State Penitentiary, and my last assignment was as the Deputy Commissioner of Adult Institutions with oversight of all state prisons. I realize I've got a strong correctional background, but during that time I've developed a deep appreciation for programs, mental health, and there are several significant programs I was involved in creating while in the Department of Corrections. I'm also a United States Army veteran, an Iraqi veteran, and a veteran of the Kentucky Army National Guard. Slide number 2. This slide provides an overview of our services and population. It should be noted that DJJ serves the youth population that is assigned to detention or post-adjudication services by the court. Slide number 3 is for informational purposes to demonstrate the population we are serving in detention. Slide number 4. There have been several important pieces of recent legislation which have impacted DJJ's population. This includes automatic detention of youth with violent crimes, expanded definitions of violent crime and enhanced penalties, and the use of a firearm in a crime for a youth. Slide number 5. 2023 Senate Bill 162 was one of the most significant recent bills for DJJ. We worked alongside the legislature to codify investments we made in the Beshear administration and continue requested improvements for staffing and security and fund critical requests. It also includes a mandate to develop and implement a new regional detention model as soon as practicable while safely segregating males and females and separating violent and nonviolent offenders. Slide number 6. 2023 House Bill 3 required automatic detention of youth charged with a violent crime starting July the 1st of 2024. It also mandated that DJJ reopen and operate the Louisville detention facilities, including the downtown Louisville Metro Government Youth Detention Center. The JCYDC renovation, as we call it, and management was to be completed in defined phases. Slide number 7. The bills referenced in this slide have impacted population and capacity at our facilities. DJJ is required by the legislatures to safely segregate males and females and violent and nonviolent offenders. This requires separation of sleeping quarters, separate programming, separate schooling, separate dining, and recreational activities. The Beshear administration requested 2 additional female detention centers to allow for further capacity. However, to date, this has not been funded, but we look forward to the upcoming legislative session. Governor Beshear, moving on to slide number 8, Governor Beshear recognized that a safe and secure facility cannot exist without qualified and strong staffing. As a result, the Beshear administration has invested significant resources into addressing recruitment and retention issues at the Department of Juvenile Justice, including raises, At the request of the Beshear administration, the General Assembly appropriated critical funds to sustain DJJ's salary increases and to raise salaries for all DJJ workers. This in addition to the starting salary for all DLC correctional officers that was raised to $50,000. Previously, the starting pay was around $30,000. Slide 9. The DJJ has the highest number of employees in recent history, and we continue to recruit and to retain staff. To give as a point of reference, in 2023, we had 313 field correctional officer positions. As of August the 25th of this year, we have 487 security field positions. So we're not only gaining ground, but we're keeping the staff that we're hiring. In the past year, because of the staffing efforts, DJJ has increased frontline correctional officers significantly. Of particular note for this committee and resulting recommendations, DJJ has heavily invested in improving its mental health and medical staffing. The department went from 6 mental health staff vacancies to no vacancies. We have a qualified mental health provider in all youth development centers and all detention facilities currently, and we're looking at hiring a second provider in some of those facilities that are allocated a second provider. Slide number 10, a top priority of mine when I became commissioner was to continue and to expand upon training investments. We know that this is also an area of interest for this committee and the resulting investigation recommendations. In regards to security threat groups and training, 3 years ago, DJJ collaborated with the Department of Corrections and law enforcement on training for all DJJ detention and youth development superintendents. Departmental superintendents selected STG coordinators in each facility in 2023. Further, the department has dedicated staff who cooperate with local law enforcement to stay up to date on STG information, and statewide trainings are held annually in individual facilities as requested or directed by DJJ leadership. In June of 23, the Department Training Division reviewed and updated security topics included in its monthly emergency response training for all facilities. The first training began in July 2023 and has continued since. In March of 2024, Mr. Troy Pollock was appointed as the Director of Training at DJJ. In this role, he led the revamping of DJJ's training curriculum to align with recent training needs, assessments conducted by Eastern Kentucky University. In August of 2025, Mr. Pollock was appointed as the Director of Detention. DJJ commonly recommends training and corrective actions for staff as needed. Slide number 11. For the first time in Kentucky's juvenile justice system, a Director of Security position and a Director of Detention position were created and filled in 2023, and these are currently filled. These were necessary for assessing security, overseeing the unique needs of detention centers, and recommending upgrades or changes. In fact, we have the Director of Security on site today, as it is, and an associate assessing security needs within facilities and making subsequent changes. In this reorganization, DJJ also created the Division of Transportation and continues to work to reduce the burden on local law enforcement for the transport of youth. DJJ also created the Compliance Branch in January 2023, which later became the Compliance Division. The division conducts unannounced facility inspections, ensures best practices are identified and followed. They make recommendations for improvements and assist with training. Slide number 12. The information provided here addresses the LOIC investigation recommendations that are related to tracking systems and reviews. DJJ appropriations are tracked internally, individually to each facility, and maintenance requests have been updated to include priority level. The Compliance Division is reviewing automated systems. However, a bid for an automated system would be required. It would require additional funding, and the development of a new system internally would require additional staff. So it's something we're considering. DJJ has implemented new requirements for facility leadership to track staff schedules, to improve staffing efficiency, and to reduce overtime. This is something that we track very closely in the Department of Corrections in order to allocate resources appropriately, personnel resources, to ensure oversight into our facility operations as far as shift schedules and how we use our personnel. And we must be fiscally responsible. So that's a technique that I brought from the Department of Corrections. DJJ facilities offer voluntary overtime and only uses staff trained in security to perform security roles. So what that means is if a staff member wants to work a security post, we don't just put people on posts that are not trained to be qualified security personnel. We only, and if a person wants to work overtime or they endeavor to work a security post, then they must go through the appropriate training and become a qualified correctional officer. Further, facility-based social workers receive security training at the DJJ Training Academy, and community-based social workers can attend the training if they want to work overtime in a security role. DJJ Human Resources monitors staff grievances filed with the Personnel Cabinet as well as staff roster requirements. They also monitor exit interviews, but these are voluntary and not frequent. Moving on to slide number 13. This information provided here addresses the LOIC investigation recommendations that are related to regulations and policies. Departmental policies and regulations identify the Internal Investigations Branch as the gatekeeper for all complaints involving instances of abuse and excessive force. The Internal Investigations Branch has regulatory authority to conduct these investigations. DJJ is working on a regulation package that includes a new ombudsman regulation and updates to reconcile with Internal Investigation Branch regulations. The department designated grievance officers in each facility review every grievance and assist juveniles if the grievance filed does not comply with the process. DJJ is working on a regulation package to address isolation and room placements. There will also be an updated incident report form. Slide 14. The safety and security and well-being of youth and staff depend upon accurate and timely data. DJJ data systems were built for a different time and a different population. Events in 2022 and 2023 made clear that the data landscape at DJJ was outdated, siloed, inadequate for our current needs. We know that the data landscape was a particular concern identified in the LOIC investigation and that several recommendations revolved around data. DJJ has made great strides in this area, and in January 2023, DJJ was added to the Kentucky Offender Management System Master Agreement to update our own offender data system, and this is currently underway. We call it JCOMS, Juvenile Kentucky Offender Management System, and it's underway in several phases currently. DJJ is in the process of replacing the DJJ owned and operated detention booking system, which supports the detention centers with appropriate JCOMS modules. To date, the department has brought 35 modules on to track and identify individual resident information. 5 of the 7 detention centers have access to JCOMS. So this is a phased rollout. What makes this a little more difficult than my experience when we rolled this out in corrections is that we have a horizontal wide span of needs. In corrections, we were able to build these phases out based on our own volition and our own needs, and to phase it in over time, many months and years. What is particularly critical is that we get it right the first time, because it involves intake and booking. So we want to ensure that we get this right the first time. Slide 15, critical improvements have been underway or completed at the detention centers. The Justice and Public Safety Cabinet contracted with the American Correctional Association beyond its regular audit and collaboration relationship to inspect facilities and identify necessary improvements. The DJJ Director of Security also assesses each detention center and recommends needed improvements. Slide 16. In 2023, House Bill 3 and House Bill 6, the legislature directed DJJ to renovate the Jefferson County Youth Detention Center and appropriated funding in required phases. From the start, DJJ has worked diligently to complete each phase of the project as directed and appropriated by the legislature. As required, the design and construction of this facility was contingent on the complete transfer of property and the deed from Louisville Metro to the Commonwealth. It took 2 years for Louisville Metro to transfer the deed to the state, during which time the state continued to work through the design phase. And I'll add that it was just a complexity because of some easement and some measurements and easements, because that facility is directly attached to the courthouse downtown. So it made it much more complex than what we thought. So we worked closely with Jefferson County and pushed that as hard as we could, but finally it materialized. The deed was transferred to the state in April of 2025, and in the same month, an RFP for construction was issued, which closed in May of this year. A contractor was selected and under contract in early June of 2025. And as of August the 20th this month, demolition is 50% complete. So the estimated completion for this project is the spring of 2027, and we hope that it stays on track. The Linden facility was also provided additional funding in 2024 House Bill 6 to fully fund the required facility modifications. As previously reported, this project is underway and construction is estimated to take 24 months. Estimated completion is the fall of 2026. We were hoping to get it a little bit sooner, but there's some complications with steel pricing and so forth on a national level. Slide number 17. DJJ hired design consultants to review the status of each facility and components and to make recommendations based on projected population and 2023 Senate Bill 162 mandates for separation. As a result, DJJ requested funding for modifications and expansions to our Breathitt, Fayette, and McCracken facilities to support the male population, which were funded in 2024 House Bill 6 and are in the final stages of design. And I say again, the final stages of design. Based on the consultant review, Governor Beshear requesting funding for 2 female facilities and 1 high acuity mental health facility during the 2024 and 2025 legislative sessions. To date, these were not funded by the legislature. They have been included again in DJJ's 2632 capital plan submission. Through this process, DJJ also received updated facility assessments and has prioritized facility repairs and maintenance projects to be assessed with maintenance pool funds. Slide number 18. DJJ has made significant investments into its mental health services. Both Senate Bill 162 and House Bill 3 outline requirements regarding mental health. Senate Bill 162 requires that DJJ enter into contracts to ensure availability of institutional treatment for those youth with significant mental health issues. Our department is also required to provide youth in crisis access to mental health professionals. House Bill 3 required automatic detention of youth accused of violent offenses for up to 48 hours. These youth are required to be assessed by a mental health professional. Any treatment recommendation must be provided by the department and may be provided via contract. Finally, on this slide, the automatic detention provision of House Bill 3 went into effect July the 1st of 24. As of August the 19th of this year, 483 assessments have been performed. Slide 19. DJJ has hired a qualified mental health professional at every detention center and youth development center. This is great news for us. It's the first time that we know of in memory. Some of the older staff can recall that we've completely filled those positions. DJJ also amended its contract with the University of Kentucky Department of Psychiatry to allow advanced practice providers to treat youth in the department. As a result, 2 psychiatric nurse practitioners evaluate and treat youth on a weekly basis at every detention center. Youth detained in our department detention facilities complete initial medical and mental health screenings during the intake process. Results from both both screeners are reviewed by trained staff. Additional screening is conducted when areas of need are identified and followed by referral to on-site counseling staff or DJJ's regional psychologists for further evaluation. Slide number 20. There continues to be challenges to provide adequate mental health services to those youth in detention. Detention staff must handle a wide variety of youth and situations due to the nature of detention, and they must triage immediate needs of youth in custody. Mental health and education services are provided to youth in detention. However, because these cases have not concluded, DJJ is limited in the programming that it can provide in detention. Formal evidence-based programming is limited in detention. For example, youth may not be guilty of an offense for which they're detained. Also, youth and parents have the right to refuse treatment. Parents must give informed consent. Significantly, the duration of detention is unpredictable and often not long enough for effective services for evidence-based practices. It is also important to note that not all youth need treatment services. Finally, the last slide. Private healthcare organizations are not required to accept DJJ youth, and DJJ historically faced significant barriers to placement for violent youth with severe mental health issues. Private treatment facilities often will not admit or will prematurely discharge severely mentally ill youth who are aggressive or violent. Absent any critical mental health alternatives, DJJ detention facilities may be the custodian of last resort. However, a child suffering from severe mental illness cannot be adequately treated in a detention center, neither designed nor staffed as a clinical facility. At the direction of Governor Beshear, DJJ and the Cabinet for Health and Family Services requested a separate mental health facility for high acuity youth in detention. This was included in the governor's budget, as well as the 2024 Senate Bill 242 and 2025 Senate Bill 111. It has not been funded to date by the legislature, but again, we're looking forward to the support and the collaboration coming up in the upcoming sessions. I believe that is the end of the slideshow and the narrative that I wanted to provide to the committee, and I think at this time we're open for questions.
Thank you for the presentation. We appreciate that very, very much. I do have a few members that have questions. We'll start off with Representative Blanton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one quick question. Commissioner, thank you for very detailed presentation. It's good to see that progress is being made in the right direction. One thing I want to ask, because back in 23, one of the things that we talked about dealing with employees and giving raises, and I've seen this in other cabinets across state government. It's good that we gave those, you were able to give the increase in the starting pay, and I heard you say that we also increased salaries of current employees. Was you able to give enough to the current employees to help offset where we're not hiring somebody in new and paying them more with that bump than somebody that's been there 5 or 10 years? Because we've ran into that in other cabinets. And so has that been able to be accomplished as well?
Yes, sir. I think that was accomplished there through the governor's Governor Beshear's administration. There was other pay allotments made as well too, and also with incoming staff members or promoted staff members, we try to take a look at existing staff members, and if a newly promoted or a newcoming employee is going to make more than them, then we try to account for that. But there was some allotments made for that.
Thank you.
And I think that it's resulted in retaining staff and you can hire them, but you got to keep them.
Absolutely. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Representative Burke.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commissioner White, for this presentation and for working so hard to address the committee recommendations. I wanted to highlight just quickly the things that really jumped out at me from your presentation. Having a qualified mental health professional in each DJJ facility is fantastic. doing unannounced site visits so that people can't put on their best show for you is very good. Using security trained staff for security work. It seems like that should be obvious, but that we needed to implement it and have, that matters, not only for the people who are working there, but for the youth who are detained. So as a family law practitioner, I understand that there's still a big gap in the confluence of areas of hospitals, foster care system, and DJJ for youth with severe mental health needs. And I'm really troubled that we've failed to appropriate what's needed for the high acuity mental health facility. Because those young people don't need to be locked up. They need to be helped so they can become the best versions of themselves. Can you give us an estimate or projection on how much that facility will cost?
I think the last estimated projection, and I'm going to give you a ballpark figure if you don't mind, but it was in the neighborhood, we're talking a high acuity mental health facility. I believe the bed count was going to be in the neighborhood of 24, accounting for the various phases of design for that facility, and it was going to be a co-ed facility, high and low risk. But the estimated amount was around $40 million at that time. But of course, as we know, as things happen, that cost could increase in the future.
Thank you. And Chairman, could I have one more question, please?
Yes, you may.
I just want to confirm what I think is true. If we fail to create these 2 additional facilities for young women and also the high acuity treatment beds, are we not exposing ourselves, the whole Commonwealth, and particularly these young people, to great liability? Isn't it dangerous for us to fail to act here?
So currently, and I'll paint the picture. I'll answer that question, ma'am, just painting the picture operationally with some details. So currently, we transport all of our female detention, offenders to Boyd County. Now, Boyd County is quite a distance from McCracken County. We know that. We're working with municipal law enforcement and state law enforcement to try to mitigate that transport. But it is a long way for an offender to be sitting in the back of a car and then have to go to court appearances, or to have, and these folks are straight off the farm, as I call it. They come in with traumatic experiences, adverse childhood experiences. And so it is a challenge, and we care deeply about trying to get a proper setting, get these juvenile offenders closer to their basis of support, their communities. And it only makes sense to have a regional basis for female offenders so we can keep them in those areas. But also at the same time, operationally, you may know or may not know, but I worked in the female prison for 8 years as a frontline staff member in the programs department. And I'm aware of the unique needs and the differences in management techniques between male and female offenders. And really, you have to maintain a basis of staff training and a staff cadre that understands and is trained and able to work with female offenders, in addition to those offenders, male or female, that have high acuity mental health needs. There has to be specified training. And that is one reason, with the stability and the experience level of the staff in Boyd County, we have a much more stable workforce. So it was a good decision. I agree with that decision, even though it was made before my time, before I was commissioner in this department. But certainly it would alleviate a lot of concerns to go back to a regional model, and to keep those females in a dedicated facility. Females, pound for pound, they require quite a bit of staff time and attention to manage, and so Boyd County does a good job. But also, at times, we see surges in the population, with the female population, and it may coincide with school starting back, or it's just we've noticed algorithms with surges, and we have to have beds sufficient to account for those services. As far as high acuity, and I'll move on to the high acuity facility, we took a look at, and please understand that this would not have been the amount of offenders that would have been housed in a facility, but we took a look at a number between January of this year and it was either May or August of this year. Forgive me, I forget which month. But we we reviewed 233 juveniles for high acuity needs. Now, I want to state that not all of those juveniles would have been put into a high acuity facility. But what that demonstrates is the amount of reviews that we're performing. So it clearly demonstrates a serious need for that type of facility. And if a juvenile does need, and we can go deep into the weeds on private care and acceptance and so forth, but if a juvenile does need mental health services, we provide those services in detention. But is detention the best setting for a juvenile that needs those services? Are they going to have the appropriate staff ratios for a juvenile that needs those serious dedicated services? So we believe very strongly in that high acuity facility. Now, we've been collaborating with South Carolina. I know their commissioner. I'm a member and I attend the Council of Juvenile Justice Administrators, where all 50 commissioners come together nationwide. South Carolina is constructing currently a high acuity facility, almost exactly resembling what we want in Kentucky. So, ma'am, I hope that answers your question.
Yes, and thank you so much again for your presentation and your hard work.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Representative Sharp?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In your presentation, you said that you've increased your frontline officers by 63%. Has that helped with your turnover rate?
Yes, sir, it has. And it's a challenge with, getting new staff. That's great, but we have to keep them and we have to train them. And from my experience in corrections, and I've seen staff and vacancy rates rise and I've seen them fall, and from my experience having low vacancy rates and then experiencing high vacancy rates and then working my way back out of those vacancy rates, I understand what it takes to get to the point that you're retaining staff. You want staff to feel supported, you want them to feel well trained, and you don't want them to be afraid. They also depend, new incoming staff, they depend on staff that are experienced to support them and prime them to perform their duties. So hiring the new staff and then keeping the new staff enables us to push that forward and to hire additional staff and to keep them for longer periods. So it's something operationally that you have to work your way out of.
Could I add something?
One other.
Could I add a response?
Let me move along out of respect for the members' time. I have one final question. Senator Carroll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to do my best to be brief, but I put in countless hours on this issue, as have other members of the legislature, the executive, and the judicial branch. This has very much been a collaborative effort to resolve this issue with DJJ. Senate Bill 11 last session, there are three main issues left that we need to address. One is the process for evaluating youth coming into DJJ, mental health issues, proper placement for them, the ability to move a violent juvenile from a hospital to a facility. That the bill addresses that lots of times now, and you all have heard all the incidents about staff in our hospitals being assaulted by juveniles. Right now, law enforcement will not remove those kids in a lot of cases because of current statute. This bill addresses that. The issue with the female centers, as the commissioner said, we spent a day at a facility in which county? Marion Adjustment Center. Yes, sir. And looking at that as a possibility for a female center located in central Kentucky, and understand what we're doing with these for the females with the regional centers. This is a compromise because right now the law says that the state shall house females separately in each one of the regional centers. That's what we wanted to begin with. Financially, fiscally, not responsible to do that. The compromise was to do these three regional centers, one in Central, one in Louisville, I think that was, and one in Western Kentucky, with provisions to do a fourth if the population dictated either in eastern Kentucky or northern Kentucky as the population dictated. And then the final issue that we need to address is the acute mentally ill. And understand there have been numerous meetings to vet this, conversations with South Carolina. I've had conversations with them. I've done research on their facility. We didn't know that they were doing that when we came up with this decision that this was the best avenue to take. There is significant cost involved in all this. Please understand that we are still at risk of another consent decree from DOJ. We have gotten somewhat of a reprieve because they've had some turnover in staff, in the staff that was actually reviewing our issues in our state. So that's kind of been put back. We need to act on this before it gets to that point. And the female issues, the mental health issues, those are the two critical issues remaining. The commissioner and his staff have done an excellent job. And, and I'm often critical of the governor. Make no mistake about that. When he hired this man, he did something right. And I know the changes he's made from policy, training, staff, you name it. He is rebuilding that and doing what we needed to do. The final steps, they're on us. You all have heard me say this before. It's time for us to act. After last session, I've taken a different approach in the way we're doing this. I have asked Chairman Elliott and Chairman Storm both to help me with this, to help us put together a bill that we can live with, and we're trying to make sure we narrow down the cost and try to do what we need to do in a most efficient manner possible, which is why we visited the Marion Adjustment Center. And know that we are being very acutely aware of the cost of this, but trying to make sure that we do what we need to do, because I really feel fairly confident that DOJ is going to make us do these things anyways. And it would be better that we got in front of it for those reasons, and primarily because it's what's best for those kids. So I can't commend the commissioner, the secretary, different cabinets, administrative office of courts, you name it, for all the work that has been put into this. And it has been one of the most rewarding experiences of my career in Frankfort, but the most frustrating because we can't get it across the finish line. And I would encourage any of you that if you have an interest in this, happy to spend time with you and go over everything that we've done. Once Chairman Elliott sat through a meeting with all of this, and the vice chair for Judiciary Committee in the House, you could see the changes, and they understood the need. On the acute mental ill hospital, our estimates for the numbers of kids that would be served in that were extremely low in the beginning, and that was one issue that I think the legislature had, was spending that kind of money. And there was a complete review, and as the commissioner said, and the numbers of beds have been increased. The need is there, and make no mistake, that facility will stay full all the time. I really have no doubts about that, and you all know the changes and how the situation is getting worse with mental illness, especially in our juvenile, our youth population. So I'll stop there, Mr. Chairman, but please know that I'm happy, Democrat, Republican, you want to sit down and talk about this. We have all worked together on this. We have a solution. We just need to move it forward. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the time.
Senator Carroll, I appreciate your passion for this issue. It's very important. Commissioner, I want to commend you on salary increases without creating a salary compression issue. Seems like we have that issue in a lot of cabinets, and I'm very pleased to hear that we don't have that here. I also want to thank you for your service to our country and to our Commonwealth, and appreciate the work that you're doing now. Thank you for being here today. I appreciate it. With that, we have nothing further. I'll announce that the next meeting of the Legislative Oversight and Investigative Committee is September the 11th, 1300 hours, here in this room in 131. Committee and staff are finalizing the agenda for that meeting, and it will be sent out as quickly as possible. If there are no further business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion and a second. We are adjourned.